Okay, so the first link on slide 3 relating to stage 4, the ACT stage, if you click on that, you get to a page actually that looks like this, in-depth inquiry. Now, this is basically a page full of text as well as some additional text uh, that is simply examples. So if you don't need the examples, you don't have to go through all that. I don't want to overly burden you. If you feel like you've got this handled and it all makes sense, then by all means, get to it. But please understand that when you come to me and say, I don't understand what you mean by this, if you haven't read that, I'm going to send you back to it. So let's take a quick look. This is about, remember, in-depth inquiry. So when you have adequately addressed all items found here, you're probably ready to move on. So how do we know that? Okay, let me read some of this. As you know, the days of chronological, first we do this, then we do this, then we do that, movement through units of study in this class are over. Instead, you get to pick the order in which we work through different content areas. And you also, as you also know, you get to choose the specific topics you explore and the ways you'll demonstrate what you've learned. All of which, whether you know it or not, is amazing and great for you. So how do you know when you're done? How do you know when the investigate stage is over and it's time to show your learning? Like many other really good questions in this class, there's no set answer. But there are some things you must do every time in any content area. Please use the below as a guide. Yes, they're required, but don't think about it as a list that just needs to be checked off. Remember, guys, deep, meaningful learning is the goal. Until you can demonstrate that, it doesn't matter how many things you check off a list. Make sense? Great. Okay, I won't read all the rest, but I will just read the numbers. So one thing that is absolutely going to be required, no matter what, is significant and well-organized notes from your research. You already know that note-taking is one of the requirements. Don't try to suggest you're ready to move on and demonstrate your learning if you don't have a wealth of notes. Okay, as you will see in a minute, each inquiry requires a minimum of 10 sources, which means you have to have notes on at least those 10 sources. That doesn't mean a few bullet points for each one. It's significant notes. You have to be reading through these sources with the intention of actually gaining deep understanding of your topic, and notes are required for that to happen. The second thing you're absolutely going to have is a properly formatted reference page with all sources used in your inquiry and credibility assessments. So your reference page, which I've got an example of right here, and I believe I've shown you in another video, reference page, just like you did last semester, but I added, in fact, we'll go ahead and look at it real quick. I've added these credibility assessments, okay, to the reference page. So this is the expectation. When you get to it, you'll see, here's my format example, and then here's a specific example. And this is the same one we used in the last inquiry, but there's my reference, and down here is my credibility assessment. So you are discussing how you know that this is credible, okay? And there are some specific, again, we'll address this in a few minutes on another video, but there's some specific things you need to be paying attention to figure out whether it's credible. And those are the kinds of things that must be discussed in that explanation. So please be sure that you address that properly. The third thing you're going to absolutely need is a list of at least 10 guiding questions and their answers. We've already talked about the fact that an inquiry is driven first and foremost by its essential question, but then you explore it in depth using these guiding questions, and they take you in different, directions or different areas of the content area that you begin to explore and get answers to. You must have at least 10 of those, and you must have answers to those 10, at least, guiding questions, answers that are based on evidence. So we've already talked about how we can organize all of that. And again, I'll show you that quick example. We've already looked at it in this series of videos, but this is an example of how here's one guiding question. Okay, here are some answers to that guiding question, and then the links to them. These links aren't really what I'm looking for in this specific. Okay, this right here, the list of guiding questions and answers, but I fully recommend that you use this format. So by all means, keep the links there. That's no problem. But just know that that is absolutely going to be required. At least 10 guiding questions with answers. Okay. And then finally, you're going to need to answer your essential question. That's what started this whole inquiry. That's what pushed you forward into learning. You have to have an answer for it. And that answer is a claim, right? And so in answering your claim, you're going to do all of these things. Or excuse me, in answering your question, you're going to be making a claim. And I want you to include all of this, okay? And all of this is discussed in this example below. So again, I'm not going to read this. This is a couple pages worth of stuff, but just to show you the format, the black text under each of these headings is as though I'm actually writing it. And then the blue text helps explain what I just wrote. So again, go through that if it's helpful to you. Don't if it's not, but just understand that's the expectation. And I'm providing this example so that you can access it if you need it. Okay, that's all for this one. Thanks.